Dating in America. A woman's body count. The number of partners. Video number 11. In this video, I will attempt to answer why it is acceptable for men to have many partners and why it is not acceptable for women. Why is a woman's body count important? If a woman has a high body count, I will also provide a way around this. Plus, I will also explain why men have no issue with some women who have a high body count and have a lot of issues with other women who have a high body count. Plus, no one ever talks about the life cycle of these kinds of relationships. I am 58 years old, and I have seen the life cycle of these kinds of relationships. The life cycle of the kind of relationship, where the woman has had more partners compared to the man. In most to all of my videos I start by showing a typical or common Black or African American neighborhood, because many people think that Black American neighborhoods are not safe. People believe that my community is filled with guns, drug dealers, and the majority of Black people are poor. All of this is not true. My community is a great place to have a family and raise children. This neighborhood is South Lothair Avenue in Chicago, Illinois. This area is one of the oldest areas in Chicago. The homes around here cost between $100,000 and $600,000. 60% of the people that live here are Black, and the rest are white. Before we start, I have to provide some background information to give you a better understanding of what I am talking about. From watching other videos, some people think that things have changed over the decades. Many believe that women are now having many partners, and in the past, this was not the case. Some say that this is because of the feminist movement and social media. All of this is wrong. Nothing has changed. In the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, women were also having many partners. That's right. Grandma was a hoe. For my foreign viewers, hoe means a very promiscuous woman, or a woman who had many partners. It does not mean a person who was a prostitute. In the 70s, there were a lot of single mothers. Plus, in the 70s is when the divorce rate in America really started to increase. This is because they created the no-fault divorce, which made it easy for women to get a divorce. Before the 70s, a person had to prove one of the following to get a divorce. Your spouse committed adultery. Your spouse was physically or mentally cruel. Your spouse is an alcoholic or drug addict. Your spouse is impotent. This means that his little head is not working. Your spouse is sterile. This means that the woman or the man cannot give you children. And last, your spouse is in prison. In the 50s, after the Communist Party took over China, the Communist Party made divorce legal. There were now so many women that wanted a divorce that it caused China's courts to become backed up for 2 years. You cannot blame feminism for this. In addition, all of my aunts are now in their 70s and 80s. But you did not hear that from me. Do not rat me out. Some of my aunt's friends told me that one of the reasons why they got divorced was because they listened to their girlfriends, or what some call the sisterhood, telling them they can do better. Plus, all of these women, after their divorce, were looking for high-value men. They all wanted to trade up, and find a man that was better than their ex-husband. Better looking and earned more money. This was taking place in the 70s and the 80s. None of them were able to trade up, and the women, the sisterhood who told these women that they can do better, also never found a high-value man. The bad part is that these older women are telling today's young women to do the same things they did. People forget that during World War II, the military gave its soldiers condoms because the military knew the men would need them. Plus, after they got back to America, many soldiers said that the women in Europe were more open when it came to intimate relations. How would you know this if you were not attempting to use the condoms before you left?
Baby, I cannot wait until I get back from the war. I might never come back.
Baby, you know I love you, and we will get married as soon as I get back from the war, as soon as I have enough money for our wedding.
We are men. We do not change. We are the same all over the world. We are always saying stuff to get into a girl's pants. Therefore, all the men on the dating websites people are calling simps are just practicing their game. You got to practice to make it to the big leagues. In year 1988, I took a family and marriage class in college. From this class, for the last 200 years, in the United States and the United Kingdom, if one compares the date people got married to the time their first child is born, one will find that over 50% of people's first child was born within 7 to 8 months after they got married. Plus, they discovered that the divorce rate was not truly high, was not truly over 60%. What made the divorce rate high was the same people getting divorced over and over again. My brother has been divorced 2 times, and some of my aunts have been divorced 2 times. Plus, 4 of my uncles died in the late 90s, and they all were in their 70s or 80s. They decided not to get married and just went from woman to woman. There was a lot of single mothers in the 1960s and the 1970s. I got cousins who I never met in Hawaii, Kentucky, Idaho, and other places. Since they were all in the army at one time, I might have cousins in Korea and Vietnam. One of my uncles told me that Asian women are not submissive, they just do it different than American women. My aunt went to high school in the 1960s, and she told me that she learned more about different kinds of knocking it down, or different kinds of intimate relations acts from the white girls. So where did the white girls learn it from? There were no sex education classes in the high schools in the 1960s. Plus, sex education classes never talked about the different kinds of acts or positions. In the 70s I met an old white man, and he told us stories about his life growing up. He said that now we have telephones in our homes and girly magazines on the streets. He said that he remembers when his town got their first telephone. It was a payphone, and it was located on the edge of town. He also said that the operator had a pretty voice. It was hard, but they managed. Back in year 2004, I met a man named Wayne, who was over 70 years old, and who is white. In the 1950s, when Wayne was 20 years old, he was married. One day after work, Wayne and 2 of his friends went from Ohio to Florida for spring break, and had a good time. None of the men told their wives until they got back to Ohio. All of them are divorced. The point is that spring break was taking place back in the 1950s. Plus, people forget that birth control or the pill became public in the late 1950s. Plus, in the 50s and the 60s there were secretarial pools. There were a lot of girls that graduated high school, and one of the only decent jobs they could get was as a secretary. Thus, you had a lot of young single women in the workplace. As the saying goes from the 1950s, Friday nights are for the girlfriend, and Saturday nights are for the wife. Plus, do not forget about the hippies and free love of the 1960s. In the 70s, HIV or AIDS spread around the world quickly, and came to the United States in year 1976 because people were having a lot of relations. In addition, in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, many single women and single mothers were saying that they did not need a man. I dated a single mother named Michelle who told me that she did not mind dying alone like their mother and aunts. In the 80s, some of my female friends told me that some of their female friends' mothers were telling their daughters to marry a high-value man. Plus, many mothers today are still giving their daughters the same advice. This means that many women in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s were doing the same stuff women are doing today. Back then, people just hid it more and did not talk about it as much. Social media has just made it easier and acceptable. Thus, none of it is because of the feminist movement. All of this means that women are using feminism to justify what they have been doing for the past 50 years. Thus, feminism is not to blame for anything women are doing today. In the 70s and the 80s, because there were more males in college compared to females, the girls had control. This also means that it does not matter if there is, or is not, an 80-20 rule for dating apps. Women would be doing and acting the same way because this is the way it has always been. In the 80s, when I was in college, I took more than a few girls on dates, and after the date they told me they had boyfriends. However, when they all were in their last 2 years of college, they all wanted to get with me. Women do not date down, and now these women had to compete with all the new girls just starting college. Thus, these girls, or now women, did not have as many men chasing or wanting to date them. Many of the girls I dated in college told me that they were going to date other men, but still wanted me as the primary man. What surprised me was when they got upset when they discovered that I also was dating other women. They got burned by their own rules. In fact, after I graduated college and came back to Chicago, I had a few of them calling me still wanting to be in a relationship. Before we start, I'm going to use people's real names. These people are now in their 60s, so no one cares if grandma was a hoe. For my foreign viewers, a hoe means a promiscuous female. In the 80s, when I was an undergrad in college at a university, I had a friend named Mark. My friend Mark was renting an apartment with 3 girls. One day I was waiting for Mark, and I noticed that there were 5 people in Mark's roommate's bedroom talking. Mark's roommate was named Karen. So I joined the conversation. Karen had her closet door open. Karen had the master bedroom, so it was not a small closet. Half of her closet had sweatshirts that covered the whole floor, went all the way to the top shelf, and then to the ceiling. I asked Karen why did she have so many sweatshirts. She answered by saying,
"You know, when you sleep over at a guy's house, you need something to wear home in the morning."
For all of her years in college, at a university, Karen never had a boyfriend for more than a week. Thus, the hookup culture was big back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, there were more men in college than women, like 3 males to every 2 females. Plus, if you subtract the men that was not attractive or poor, then there was a lot more men compared to women in college. So females had a lot of control. So by the time you graduated college, on average, more women have had more partners compared to most men. However, after you graduated college, things changed. Women do not date down, but most men do not care what kind of education or job a woman has. Thus, the man might be highly educated, but we will date and marry the secretary, the waitress, the barmaid, the stripper, or the single mother. Because of this, and because women do not date down, there were now a lot more females compared to males. However, many girls still acted as if it was still 3 males to every 2 females. However, after a few years of being out of college, the girls get hit by reality. Particularly when daddy stopped paying all the bills. In the 90s, after I got out of grad school, I said to myself, no more female friends. I had many female friends, and we hung out, and I helped them with their dating problems. I was never interested in dating or sleeping with any of my female friends. Some of my female friends would try and set me up with some of their female friends. Plus, I sometimes hung out with their boyfriends. The girl usually wanted to know what I thought about the guy. My true impression most of the time was to tell the man to run, but I never did. The reason why I stopped having female friends is because I learned too much. Way too much. My brother graduated college in the 70s, and I graduated college in the 80s, and just like today, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s were a big hookup culture. The internet just makes it more convenient. All the girls that did not get picked by a Tyrone or a Chad on Friday or Saturday, would be at a bar on Sunday, all lonely. This is when the average guy could score. For my foreign viewers, Chad or Tyrone is a category of men who are good looking and have money. By the time the girl was 24 to 27 years old, some females stopped waiting for a Tyrone or a Chad. Plus, after seeing all of her female friends get married and having children, she realized that all she really needs is a nice, considerate, and caring man. I am 58 years old, and I run into old female friends, and female family members, who I know are over 50 years old, and they are still waiting for a Tyrone or a Chad. The best thing about the modern day women who are waiting for a Tyrone or a Chad is at least they have their own money. There are many women over 50 years old that do not have any money, or they have so much debt that if you marry one of them, their debt will bring you down. Most of them have no money, and they have a lot of debt. I am not talking about student loans, credit cards and other personal debts. This might be one of the reasons why currently, today, young females believe that having a good job is one of the reasons that makes them a high-valued woman. A woman who has a good job or her own money means nothing to most men, because most of the time it is the man that pays for everything. Yes, men will not date a woman who is prettier than you. A man will date a woman who is easier than you. Easier does not mean that she is easier to get into bed. It means she is easier to live with. No one wants to come home and deal with a lot of headaches and drama. So when a woman says that the man cannot handle or deal with a strong woman, yes, she is right, she is correct. Why should we men spend $100 to get what we need, when we can get the same thing for $10? A woman's job, money, or status is not important to most men. This is why most men will date and marry the secretary, the waitress, the barmaid, the stripper, or the single mother. Back in the 80s and 90s, many women in college, at a university, believed that men who were graduating wanted to get married. However, most men in their 20s, who had just graduated college, did not want to be in a relationship. This was because after college, in the real world, because women do not date down, there were more females compared to males. Plus, if you had a good job, it did not matter how good looking you were. Most of us men were thinking that we all were about to get real jobs, buy a car, and have our own apartment with no roommates. We are about to have a good time. We will finally able to date. Finally able to cycle through women. In the 80s, in college, many women would not date a man if he did not have a car. Plus, the women who did not go to college would not date a man if he did not have a car. Many men in their 20s did not have a car. Most men in college did not have a car. So, more women had more partners compared to most men. Thus, just like today, women back in the 80s and the 90s were only dating Chad or Tyrone. For my foreign viewers, Chad or Tyrone is a category of men who are good looking and have money. This creates a lot of resentment in men. In 1990, I had a friend named Norman, who is black, and when he was 32 years old, he was finally making a good living. This allowed him to dress better than what he dressed in college, drive a nice car, and purchase a house. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was difficult to purchase a home because the interest rate for a mortgage was 10%. The girls who would not give Norman the time of day in college were using their own money to fly in from other states just to spend time with him. In 1984, when my friend named Jimmy was 28 years old, who is white, purchased a Porsche, Jimmy said the following to me.
Todd, they are not looking at us, they are looking at the car. When they do you, they are really doing the car and you are just there for the ride.
In 1993, I visited my brother in Seattle and we were driving around in a Jaguar, and he told me the same thing. I got hundreds of stories like this from men who are black, white, Latino, and Asian. Thus, nothing has changed. Nothing is different today compared to what it was back then. Now, all the girls would meet a Norman or a Jimmy one weekend, would sleep with him the next weekend. Afterward, Jimmy or Norman would never call. So the girl would find another Jimmy or Norman, and start the cycle all over again. As I said earlier, back in the 80s and the 90s, all the girls that did not get picked by a Tyrone or a Chad on Friday or Saturday, would be at a bar on Sunday, all lonely. This is when the average guy could score. There are only 52 weeks in a year, and if you subtract the holidays, then this gives you 15 to 20 guys these women have slept with in 1 year. I did not want to know any of this stuff. Therefore, no more female friends. Jimmy or Norman would never call because they knew that if they did not have the car they were driving, none of these girls would give them the time of day. These are usually the kind of women that cycled through men in their 20s. So now it is Jimmy or Norman's turn to cycle through women. Subsequently, because of resentment, Jimmy or Norman are doing the same things that were done to them when they were in their 20s. Both Jimmy and Norman got married in the 90s, and are both still married with children today. The older a man gets, there are more single women compared to single men. Plus, some older attractive men can pull 20-year-old women. Back in the 80s and the 90s, from talking to my female friends, and helping them with their dating problems, I learned the following. Many nice guys have a difficult time getting a girl until they start making money. Because of this, many girls we run into have had a lot more partners than what many nice guys have had. Plus, given the fact that it seems like women are only interested in us after we start making money creates resentment in the nice guy. Most nice guys would prefer to have a girl who has experienced dating similar to what we have experienced. Low body count. This helps to eliminate any resentment we might feel. As the saying goes, the nice guy always gets the girl in the end. However, we realize what we are getting, and we do not want it. Most nice guys do not have a lot of partners. I personally can count and remember all the women I have slept with. I know a lot of women that cannot remember all the men they have slept with. Women always put me in the category of marriage material. The same women where it was no big deal to have one-night stands, always required that I provide a commitment before they would sleep with me. If I did provide a commitment, some of these women would attempt to make me wait 1 to 2 months. Attempting to pretend as if they are good girls. What I also figured out is that if a man even thinks about asking a woman about her body count, then 100% of the time it is big. Plus, some of my female friends just knew that after they had their fun and dated all the Tyrone and Chad, they could easily get me when they decided that they wanted to get married. I always turned them down. Everyone wants to feel special. Sleeping with a lot of people does not make a man feel special. It makes the man feel like he has been settled for because the woman could not get a Tyrone or a Chad. When we men meet a girl who has had many partners, we men might not know why it bothers or disturbs us, but it does. Plus, this is also true in the gay community. Gay men do not like to date other men that had many partners.
Gay dating red flags. Oh my gosh, there's a lot, but let's just do the basics. If you ask him how many people he has slept with and he can't give you an answer, that is the answer. It's a lot. He's had a lot of situationships.
Most men around the world do not like to date or marry a woman who has had many partners. This is how men are built. This is the nature of men all over the world and in every culture. This is the way it has always been. Every woman knows this is how men are built, and yet they do it anyway. When a woman who has had more partners compared to the man, most of the time, the girl will act like there is something wrong with the man. Since the man did not have as many partners as the female, she will break up with the man because she is scared that he will cheat. I have known marriages where the woman has had more partners than the man. No matter how much the man assures the woman that he will not cheat, even after 10 years of being married, the woman is still scared that the man will cheat. Plus, some of these women tell their husbands not to embarrass them or bring it home. In other words, no children by any other woman and no diseases. For the woman, it is hard to deal with this kind of fear for 10 years, and for the man, it is hard for him to deal with her fear for 10 years. Thus, except for one marriage, all of them are divorced. However, for all the women that have had many partners, there might be a way around all of this. There might be a way out. The way out. Here is my story. I met a girl named Stacy. Here is a picture of Stacy. Stacy was 32 years old when I met her, and she was an ex-adult film actress. During our second date, Stacy told me about her past. She told me that she did 14 adult films and that she did not want to have kids. If the first date did not go well, then there was no reason for Stacy to tell me about her past because we probably would never see one another again. Stacy and I became good friends. Stacy and I never slept together. We never kissed. Our first date, we had coffee and talked. Our second date, we had McDonald's and drove around and talked. McDonald's was her idea. I might be crazy, but I am not insane. Plus, it was one of the cheapest dates I had, and it was one of the best dates I had. Some women have asked me if I would have married Stacy. The answer is yes. I asked myself why I did not have a problem with Stacy's past, but I did have problems with other girls' past. Why would I say yes to Stacy and no to other girls? The more I got to know Stacy, the more she demonstrated the person she is today. The more I got to know the other girls, the more they demonstrated the person they are today. Stacy gave me the consideration of accepting or rejecting her past. She never attempted to hide anything from me. She never played any games. She did not present herself to be one way and turned out to be another way. Plus, except for the time period when she was making those films, Stacy was always in some kind of relationship. Thus, Stacy was not the kind of woman that cycled through 15 to 20 men in a year. I knew beforehand what I was getting with Stacy, and with other girls, I would discover later what I was getting. Headaches, games, foolishness, drama. Yes, there are many people in the adult entertainment world that have had hundreds of partners, but not all of them. However, compared to many women I know, the only real difference is that adult film actresses do not attempt to hide it. Because of many reasons, some women go into adult entertainment because they have to, and not by choice. Other women might try adult entertainment by choice for a short time. However, this does not mean that they have had many partners, and have cycled through 15 to 20 men in a year. Plus, by telling me before we got involved, she did not have to worry about me finding out one day and feeling hurt and angry. She could trust that I would not leave one day because of it. She could trust that we would not have problems or fights in the future because of her past. This helps to create the emotional, psychological, and mental commitment that is needed for every relationship. This builds trust. Some women said that because of Stacy's past profession, she knew how to manipulate men. Yes, Stacy understood men very well, and she also understood that men are not stupid. So after she said that she might want children, I kind of understood years later that Stacy was vetting me. The reason why we did not get together had nothing to do with her past. Stacy had other issues. I never attempt to kiss her in anything regarding sleeping together. Once we both said that we will be just friends, then this was it. All the other girls that had been with 15 to 20 guys in a year, would always attempt to hide all of this, and it would drive me nuts. Guys are not dumb. We will eventually figure it out. I have male friends who dated these kinds of girls, the kind that had many partners, and the men always wonder what else is the girl hiding. What other surprises will I have to deal with in the future? Plus, many people, men, and women, go out into the world and attempt to make money. We handle our business. Most of us do not have the energy to deal with a foolish person. Most of these kinds of women, the type that had many partners, would always say that it is no big deal, her past does not matter, or it is not important. If the man acts like it is a big deal, or if it does bother or disturb him, then the woman will attempt to make it seem like there is something wrong with the man. Stacy understood that a person's past is important. She understood that some people will not even want to be seen with her in public because of her past. Most people would not date a person who is a convicted child abuser, or who is Adolf Hitler. Thus, what a woman has done in her past is a big deal, it does matter, and it is important. Hence, a woman's body count is important. Since the beginning of time, everyone around the world knows that men have always felt this way. Thus, for men, this has always been a big deal, and it has always disturbed us. Most of the time, the woman will end the relationship. The reason why she ended the relationship is because she is scared that the man will want to have just as many partners as she had. The only way for the man to achieve this is to cheat. Thus, the reason why she ended the relationship is because she is scared that he will cheat. This is a reasonable fear. However, this depends on the man. A few months after the breakup, the man realizes that he did not avoid a bullet, he avoided a nuclear bomb. All of this supports the theory that these kinds of women are not high quality. These are the kinds of women that a man puts into the category of wham, bam, thank you ma'am. Then these kinds of women will attempt to date an older man, thinking that an older man will be more understanding and more forgiving of her past. The answer to this question is that it depends on the man, and it depends on the girl. If the girl is immature, delusional, or not practical, which most of these kinds of women are, then the older man will look at her as just someone to have a good time, someone to have fun with, and just someone to pass the time with. This is because these kinds of women usually come with a lot of headaches. A man wants to enjoy his time with his woman. He does not want to have to sit there and attempt to figure it all out. What I learned from Stacy is that it is not your past that is the problem, but how you deal with your past, why you did it, and are you the same person? The saying that you cannot make a promiscuous woman into a housewife is true. The problem is not the promiscuous part. The promiscuous part is only a manifestation of a person who is full of self-centered, self-serving, selfish. Stacy was considerate, caring, understanding, and kind. Thus, she was not promiscuous. Because Stacy is not promiscuous, not full of self, I have no problems with marrying her. The other girls were not very considerate, faked caring, not understanding, and were only kind and caring when there was something in it for them. Thus, like many men, I consider them promiscuous. Full of self. Thus, it is not the number of partners you have. Most people do not want to marry a promiscuous person. A person who is full of self, creates drama, and are a lot of emotional headaches. In other words, delusional or immature. Now, other women that had many partners might have done it because of their insecurities. Women that have a lot of insecurities are hard to deal with. They are hard to deal with because the man is always attempting to figure things out, always trying to figure out what is really going on and why. Plus, these women always make the new man pay for other men's mistakes. I dated a girl named Barbara, and I really liked Barbara. Barbara was the only girl that I broke my rule to never date a woman that dated one of my friends. However, I did not figure out until decades after we stopped dating that she also really liked me, and truly wanted to be with me. At the time, I did not know what was truly going on, but decades later, I now know it was because she had a lot of insecurities. If Barbara had played me differently, if many girls had played me differently, I might have been married in my 20s. I would have definitely married Barbara. But the games many women play drives a good man away. Many women will sleep with a Tyrone or a Chad before the first date. However, the same women will make a good guy, the kind they might want to marry, go through hell. Yes, the good guy might do the same thing as a Tyrone or a Chad. However, we good guys ask ourselves, why do we have to prove ourselves? Why do we have to go through hell? How come you cannot do the same things for us as you did for Tyrone or Chad? How do you women think this makes the good guy feel? Thus, we leave. Barbara made me wait over a month. However, this was not the problem. The problem was that I always had to call, always had to pursue, always had to chase. Thus, I lost interest. Barbara never claimed me as her man. Now you might be asking yourself, how does Stacy compare to women that were not promiscuous? Yes, I dated women that were not promiscuous. However, they were immature, delusional, or not practical. Stacy was mature, not delusional, and she was practical. Thus, when I compared Stacy to these women, Stacy still came out on top. Plus, everyone wants to marry someone who they are proud of and makes us feel like we are special to them. Many women like the fact that she has a man that other women want but cannot have. This makes her feel special, and results in her being proud of whom she is with. When a woman has many partners, it makes the man feel like he has been settled for because the woman could not get a Tyrone or a Chad. Yes, Stacy dated men that was in the category of a Tyrone or a Chad, and she was once married to a Chad. Stacy was the kind of person that always wanted to be in a relationship, and this is why her body count was not as high as some of the other women I knew. After dating a Chad and being married to a Chad, she now just wanted a nice, caring, and loving man. I knew how she felt. After one really bad relationship, or after dating a narcissist, it becomes more important to find someone who you can live with on a day-to-day basis. Feeling special or feeling needed is no longer that important. Even when Stacy and I got into an argument, I always felt relaxed around Stacy. Stacy did not make me feel special, she did not make me feel needed, but she acted and she told me that I could always count on her and she would always have my back. This feeling of security was more valuable than feeling special or feeling needed. It was not that Stacy understood men, she understood what is really important in a relationship. Feeling special, feeling needed, being proud of who you are with, or status, is not really important. At the end of the day, when you close the door, it is just you and her. Emotional stability and psychological security are the most important things in a relationship. The problem is that most people take this for granted and think it is a given. All of these are the reasons why it is acceptable for men to have many partners and why it is not acceptable for women. My best advice. Another girl I dated named Sue also had a high body count. At first, I was shocked by it, but later I had no problems with it. Other women that had a high body count, I had a lot of problems with it. It took me 30 years to figure out why I have a problem with some women's body count and have no issues with other women who had a high body count. Girls like Sue learned that the trick is to tell the guy before there is any emotional bonding. Stacy did the same thing. If you wait until afterwards, and he figures it out, then there will be hurt, anger, and mistrust. Yes, the man might walk away, or you might feel like you are being judged. 1. We all judge each other. You have judged a lot of men that you decided afterwards you did not want to be with. 2. It is best that he walks away now, before you two become emotionally involved and psychologically connected, and have to deal with the hurt and anger that will result if he figures it out later. People are not stupid, we always figure it out. When a woman says that her body count does not matter, it is no big deal, her past does not matter, it is not important, do not get mad, do not be upset. She is indicating that she will be headaches and will provide foolish drama in the future. No one wants to deal with that, so do not say anything similar. If a man asks a woman what her body count is, the man will not understand that deep down, he is attempting to figure out if she is the one. If she is a person he would like to marry. However, there is something holding him back and he is attempting to figure it out. For men there are only two kinds of women. The women we would consider marrying and all the others. We only care about a woman's body count for the one we would consider marrying. The best advice I can give is to tell the man your body count, go through the shit, and see what happens on the other side. Plus, do not say, do not get mad, or anything similar. If the man does become upset, or has issues with it, then this is a good thing. A man will only become upset, or have issues with a woman he cares about, a woman who he has feelings for, and the woman who he wants to be with. Thank you for watching. Please click the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video. For a free copy of my music, go to my website. Remember, my music is only background music. Right now, my music is free, but if I have to start paying for extra services, then I might have to set a price for a download. If you want to know how to create your own music, then go to my other YouTube channel and look for the word Garageband. Creating your own music is easy. I did it and I cannot play a musical instrument. If you want to know how to translate a video into other languages, then go to my other YouTube channel and look for the word translate. The links are in the description below.